Welcome back to Narrative Mode. I'm Henry with a Y. If you've been with us since our first two sessions, you know we spent a lot of time in the realm of engineered and the artificial. We started this journey with the spice-laden manufactured prophecies of Dune, and we followed that up with the lightning-charged scientific hubris of Frankenstein. In those stories, we look at what happens when humanity tries to play God, either by creating a savior or by assembling a man from the pieces of the dead. But today, I wanted to bring the show down to earth. I wanted to move away from the engineered and the manufactured to talk about something much more raw. Today, we aren't talking about the future or the supernatural. We are talking about the most fundamental human struggle, the struggle for the mind. We are talking about a film that by all rights should have been a footnote in cinematic history. When it was released in 1994, it was a box office disappointment. It was a slow 3-hour prison drama based on a Stephen King novella with a title that nobody could quite remember how to pronounce. At that time, it was eclipsed by the pop culture juggernaut of Pulp Fiction and the sentimental sweep of Forrest Gump. And yet, if you look at the major film ranking today, IMDb, Letterboxd, the list goes on, there it is, sitting at the very top. We are talking, of course, about Frank Darabont's The Shawshank Redemption. Why does this movie endure? Why does the story about two men in a grey, brutal prison in Maine feels like the most hopeful thing ever put on celluloid? It's because Shawshank isn't actually a movie about prison. It's a movie about the human mind. It's a movie about invincible walls we build around our own potential and the pressure required to break through them. Today, I'm taking us on a deep dive. I want to look at this movie through a fresh lens, extracting lessons that aren't about getting even or keeping secrets, but about a very architecture of survival. We are going to look at 4 specific pillars today. First, the hazard of the invincible cage. We'll talk about Brooks Hatlen and the psychological trap of institutionalization. Second, the inviolability of the inner narrative, using the Mozart and the library scenes to discuss how to maintain a world that no one can touch. Third, we have to talk about the philosophy of pressure and time. We look at Andy's 19-year tunnel and what it teaches us about the cumulative power of small, consistent efforts. And finally, we'll analyze the accountability of the horizon, the friendship between Andy and Red, and why having a Zihuatanejo in your mind is the only thing that keeps you from stepping off a chair in a boarding house. So get busy living or get busy dying. We're heading to Shawshank State Penitentiary. We are going to look at the 4 specific pillars today. First, the hazard of the invincible cage. We'll talk about Brooks Hatlen and the psychological trap of institutionalization. Second, the inviolability of the inner narrative, using the Mozart and library scenes to discuss how to maintain a world that no one can touch. Third, we have to talk about the philosophy of pressure and time. We look at Andy's 19-year tunnel and what it teaches us about cumulative power of small consistent efforts. And finally, we'll analyze the accountability of the horizon, the friendship between Andy and Red, and why having a Zihuatanejo in your mind is the only thing that keeps you from stepping off a chair in a boarding house. So get busy living or get busy dying. We're heading to Shawshank State Penitentiary. Let's start with the world that the film practically redefined for the cultural lexicon. Institutionalize. It's a word that Red, played by Morgan Freeman with a very soulful gravitas, uses to describe the older prisoners. But the true face of the concept in Brooks Hatlen, James Whitmore gives one of the most heartbreaking supporting performance in history as the prison librarian who has been inside for 50 years. There is a scene that defines the horror of the invincible cage. Brooks finally gets his parole, he's free, and what does he do? He tries to kill another inmate just so he can stay in prison. He is terrified of the world outside. He has spent half a century in a world where every meal, every walk, and every bathroom break is dictated by a bell. Red explained it to the younger guys, and it's the first big lessons of the movie. These walls are funny. First you hate them, then you get used to them, and as time passes, you get so dependent on them. Institutionalization isn't just about prison bars. It's about any system that takes away your agency for so long that you stop wanting it back. It's the job that you hate but stay at 30 years because you know the routine. It's the relationship that is hollow but comfortable because you've forgotten how to be alone. Brooks is the warning. He goes out into the 1950s world and he can't handle it. The cars are too fast. The world is too loud. No one tells him when he can speak. He is free but his mind is still in the cell. He has been so conditioned by the walls of Shawshank that the lack of wall feels like a void. When Brooke writes that final letter, Brooks was here, and he steps off that chair, he is telling us that the most dangerous prison is the one you build in your own head. If you stay in your cage long enough, you'll eventually find that you lost the ability to fly, even when the door is wide open. We have to ask ourselves, what is our Shawshank? What are the routines that we become so dependent on that we would fight to stay in them? The tragedy of Brooks is that he realized too late that the walls weren't there to keep him in. They were there to make him forget what it was like to be out. The lesson here is that safety isn't often a trap. We crave the bell because the bell means we don't have to choose. But a life without choice isn't a life, it's a sentence. Now let's talk about Andy Dufresne. Tim Robbins plays him with this incredible, quiet, almost ethereal quality. Andy is the antithesis of Brooks. He is the wild bird that Red talks about. What makes Andy different isn't that he's stronger or faster than the other men. It's that he has more robust inner narrative. This is lesson 2. Your internal world is your only absolute sovereignty. Think about the Mozart scene. It's probably the most beautiful moment in the movie. Andy gets a shipment of books and records for his library. He finds a recording of the marriage of Figaro. And what does he do? He locks the guard in the bathroom and broadcasts the opera over the entire prison speaker system. The whole yard stops. Every inmate, every guard, every worker, they just look up at the speaker's thread says. I have no idea to this day what those 2 Italian ladies were singing about. But for the briefest of moment, every last man in Shawshank felt free. Andy took a brutal punishment for that. He got 2 weeks in the hole, solitary confinement. And when he came out, he said it was the easiest time he had ever did. Why? Because he had Mozart to keep him company. He played the music in his head. He refuses to let the gray walls dictate the color of his thoughts. He understood that the system relies on your becoming a number. It relies on you accepting the grayness as the only reality. But Andy maintained a sacred garden in his mind. He cultivated a world that the warden couldn't touch, couldn't see, and couldn't punish. We see this again with the library for 6 years. Andy writes 1 letter a week to the state government asking for funds. They don't answer. He keeps writing. Eventually, they send him a small check and some books they just get him stopped. And what does he do? He starts writing 2 letters a week. He is creating a window where there was a wall. He's proving that the mind can expand even when the body is confined. He teaches men to read. He helps them get their high school equivalencies. He is forcing the environment to reflect him rather than allowing himself to be reflected by the environment. This is a massive lesson for anyone facing a gray period in their life. Whether it's a career rut or a period of isolation or a personal loss. You have to have a Mozart in your head. You have to maintain an internal narrative that is more real than the external world trying to crush you. If you don't build your own world inside, you'll be forced to live entirely in the world someone else built for you. This is a massive lesson for anyone facing a gray period in their life. Whether it's a career rut or a period of isolation or a personal loss. You have to have a Mozart in your head. You have to maintain an internal narrative that is more real than the external world trying to crush you. If you don't build your own world inside, you'll be forced to live entirely in the world someone else built for you. And this hope isn't a feeling, it's an architecture. It's a structure he built stone by stone, or in this case, letter by letter. He shows us that sovereignty doesn't mean having power over others. It means having power over your own story. Let's move to the mechanics of the escape. Not the how, but the why. Red has a famous line near the end of the movie. Geology is the study of pressure and time. That's all it takes really. Pressure and time. Andy Dufresne spent 19 years in Shawshank, 19 years of being beaten, being used, and being belittled. But every single day of those 19 years, he was chipping away at the wall with a rock hammer no bigger than a man's hand. This brings us to lesson 3, the cumulative power of the micro action. We often think that the big changes require big explosive action. We wait for the perfect moment to change our lives. We wait for the lottery win, the dream job offer, the stroke of luck, but Andy didn't wait. He started scratching at that wall the moment he got his hammer. He hid the dust in his pocket and dropped it in the yard, one handful at a time, day after day, for nearly 2 decades. He understood the physics of persistence, that the wall was made of stone, but the stone was old, and he was patient. He understood that 1,000 tiny scratches eventually make a hole. Think about the discipline required to do that. To look at the wall that is several feet thick and believe that you can crawl through it with a tool designed for polishing rocks. Most of us give up on the New Year's resolution after 3 weeks because we don't see immediate result. Andy didn't give up on a tunnel for 7,000 days. This is lesson in long game endurance. We live in the world of overnight successes and the viral moments we want to get out of jail free card. But Shawshank teaches us that the true redemption is earned through the foulness of the work. We have to talk about the tunnel itself. Andy Dufresne, who crawled through the river of shit and came out clean on the other side. 500 yards of foulness, that is the final price of his freedom. He had to be willing to face the most disgusting part of the system, the literal race to get past it. The lesson here is that the path to your siwataneho isn't a clean one. It's through the mess. It's through the long, quiet, repetitive work that no one sees and no one cheers for. Persistence is just a decision to keep scratching when everyone else has accepted the wall as permanent. Freedom isn't something that is given to you. It's something you scrape out of the stone. But Andy didn't just save himself, he saved Red. Red is the most important character in the movie because he is us. He is the skeptic. He is the one who says hope is a dangerous thing. He is the one who has accepted the walls. He is the comfortable in his institution. He is the man who can get things, but the one thing he can get for himself is a future. But Andy gives Red something that the warden never could: accountability to a future. This is lesson 4. Human connection is the only safeguard against despair. Before Andy escapes, he makes Red promise him something. He gives him a specific set of the instructions. He tells him about the hayfield in Buxton and the rock that has no earthly business being in Main hayfield. Before Andy escapes, he makes Red promise him something. He gives him a specific set of instructions. He tells him about the hayfield in Buxton and the rock that has no earthly business being in a Main hayfield. He tells him about a black piece of volcanic grass. He is giving Red a map to a future. He is giving him a reason to stay alive after the walls are gone. When Red finally gets his parole after 40 years, he is on the same path as Brooks. He is working at the same grocery store. He is living in the same boarding house. He looks at the same beam in the ceiling where Brooks carved his name. He is terrified. He thinks about committing a crime just to go back home to Shawshank. He feels the pull of the institution. He remembers the promise. He has an appointment with a rock in a hayfield. The promise is what keeps him from stepping off the chair. It's what keeps him from becoming Brooks, having a destination, having a Sugatanejo. Is that what makes the present bearable? But more importantly, having someone who expects you to be there is what makes the present navigable. He sees the power of this at the very end. We see the power of this at the very end. The letter under the rock, Red finds it, and he finds the money and finds the final invitation I hope you can find this. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it was been in my dreams. I hope. And for the first time in 40 years, Red isn't sorry. He isn't rehabilitated. He is alive. He breaks his parole. He gets on the bus and he says those words that change the entire energy of the film. I'm so excited I can barely sit still or hold a thought in my head. I think it's the excitement only a free man can feel. A free man at the start of a long journey whose conclusion is uncertain. Andy saved Red not by breaking him out of prison, but by giving him a reason to break out of himself. He gave him a horizon to look at. Connection isn't just about sharing a beer on the roof. It's about making a pact that the future is worth reaching. We have to talk about the villain, Warden Norton. Bob Gunton plays the Warden with this terrifying, sterile precision. He is a man who believes in the absolute power of the system. He uses the Bible as a weapon. He thinks that because he controls the locks and the guns, he controls the men. But the Warden is the most institutionalized person in the whole movie. He is a slave to his own corruption. He is a slave to his own greed. He is so blinded by his sense of superiority that he doesn't see the man who has been fixing his taxes for a decade as a threat. The Warden represents the fragility of rigid system. He thinks he's playing God. He thinks he can murder Tommy, the young kid who had the proof of Andy's innocence, and that there will be no consequences. He thinks he can bury the truth forever. But the truth has its own pressure and time. When Andy escapes, he doesn't just leave an empty cell. He leaves a trail of evidence that dismantles the Warden's entire world. He takes the Warden's money, yes, but more importantly, he takes the Warden's mask. The ending for the Warden is the ultimate irony. He is trapped in his office. He hears the sirens. He looks at the mural on his wall that says, "His judgment comment and the right soon." And he realized that the judgment didn't come from the sky. It came from the man he treated like a pet. The lesson here is about blindness of power. When you treat people as objects, you lose the ability to see them as agent of change. The Warden lost because he couldn't imagine a world where a prisoner could be smarter, more patient, and more disciplined than him. He was a prisoner for his own ego. He thought he was the architect, but he was just another inmate. Finally, let's talk about the ending, the beach. There's a bit of movie trivia that Frank Darabont didn't want to show the reunion on the beach. He wanted to end it on the bus with Red saying, "I hope." He thought showing them together was too Hollywood, too sentimental. But I think showing the reunion is essential to the narrative mode of this film. We need to see the blue. Red walking across that sand towards that old boat, seeing Andy standing there, fixing it up. It's the ultimate validation of the discipline of hope. It's not just a happy ending, it's a vindicated ending. It tells us that Zihuatanejo isn't a dream. It's a place you can get if you are willing to crawl through the shit. It's a place you can get if you are willing to scratch the wall for 19 years. It completes a transition from the gray rain-soaked night of the escape to the bright saturated blue of the Pacific. It's the visual representation of the internal world finally becoming the external world, and this narrative finally became the reality. When they hug on the beach, there aren't prisoners anymore. There aren't even ex-cons. There are free men who have redeemed their own stories. They didn't just get out, they got home. So the Shawshank Redemption. Why are we talking about this in 2026? Because we are all in a kind of Shawshank. We are all surrounded by walls. Some of them are economic, some of them are social, some are digital, and some are just the stories we tell ourselves about what we can't do. We are all at risk of becoming institutionalized by our routines. We are all at the risk of forgetting that the music is still in our heads. We are all at risk of becoming Brooks, too afraid of the fast cars to ever leave the boarding house. Andy Dufresne reminds us that you don't need a huge hammer to break down a wall. You just need a small one and a lot of time. You need the discipline to keep writing the letters. You need the courage to share your Mozart with the yard. Let's recap these 4 Shawshank lessons one last time. Number 1. Beware the invincible cage. Don't let your comfort zone become your institution. Routine is not freedom. If the bell tells you when to move, you're not leaving. Number 2. Cultivate your inner narrative. Your internal world is the only space no one can touch. Build it, nurture it, and keep it bright. Play the music in your head. Number 3. Trust in pressure and time. Big changes are the result of tiny consistent action. Scratch the wall every single day, handful by handful. Number 4. Connect to the horizon. Find your Ziwatanejo and find the person who expects you to be there. We need each other to stay human. If you haven't seen this movie in a while, or if you've ever seen it in bits of pieces on cable, watch it tonight. Pay attention to the silence. Pay attention to the way Andy looks at the sky. And remember, I hope. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope. Thank you for joining me for this solo deep dive. We've covered some grounds today. Next week we'll be back to our regular programming. But for now, get busy living. I'm Henry with a Y. Stay curious.